All right, so here we are, live again, ready to go to talk about careers and career change for millennials. Now, in today's video specifically, I want to focus on the four main strategies that would really help people make a career transition into another career, or maybe just change it in a positive way. Now, sometimes, a lot of times we say like, okay, yeah, career change, it means like, changing everything for, like, no, sometimes it doesn't have to be like that. Career changes can be minor tweaks and so on. Now, just a quick sound check. If you can hear me, let me know in the comments if you can hear me. If you can't hear me, yeah, you would probably know by now that you can't hear me, and it'll be great if you could let me know as well. All right. Now, very quickly then, let's get into it. And then at the end of this session, so this is how everything goes usually, right? At the beginning of the session, I offer you several tips and strategies to help you navigate your career, whether it's gaining clarity or transitioning and so on. These would all help you in your career, especially now we're in COVID times. Everyone's looking to take a pause and really contemplate what's up with their lives and is it going the way they want to go. Also, there's the mere fact that we are now in New Year's, right? I mean, Christmas and New Year's is right around the corner. Hey, what's up, Ahmed? Awesome, you can hear me. That's great. Christmas and New Year's is right around the corner, and a lot of people are just thinking like, okay, what am I going to do for this new year? How am I going to navigate my life, basically, right, for next year? And so hopefully this session will offer a lot of value. If you got any questions, as always, drop it in the comment box and I'll get to it at the end. All right. So first of all, the very first strategy is to get clarity, like hands down, the most important thing, because once you are clear what's inside you and what you want, what comes next is simply just closing that gap and getting that, right? But one of the biggest mistakes that I see, and recently I was part of Diana Chan's summit, and Career Relaunch Summit, that's what it was called. And in there, a lot of the themes that we talked about, there was like 15 different speakers. I was one of them. And one of the main themes that kept on coming up is, yeah, we got to be clear on your messaging. You got to be confident in your messaging, because employers, once they get you in that interview and they have that conversation with you, they could tell in an instant whether this is something you're actually proud of, this is actually something you're passionate about, and whether it's authentic or not. They could smell it, right? And it's not even like how you do the interview, it's more like the subconscious notions that would come out, whether your posture, whether you're confident in what you're communicating, and so on. So this is usually one of the difference breakers, the key tiebreakers between several candidates, like how trustworthy is this candidate, right? So clarity is key. And if you're not clear on what you want, and you land a job that it pays awesome but it makes you miserable, is that even a desirable outcome, right? I guess if money is your main objective, then sure. But at the end of the day, clarity is key, because you need to know where you're going in order to even go there, right? So there's several components to clarity. Number one, what's your deepest desires? And desires are driven by emotions, which means we need to dive subconsciously. A lot of times emotions are happen, like we see the secondary emotions such as anger, right? But what is anger really? Anger is often a reaction to pain or a reaction to something that just triggers you in a way that you just have to be angry. But what is anger? Like, you have to defend yourself from something. Anger is usually in defense of something or lashing out in retribution, and you hurt me, so I want to hurt you back, right? So a lot of times there's a primary emotion underneath. Maybe it's pain, maybe it's envy, maybe it's something else. But the main desire, what is there subconsciously, is important. That's why when I work with my clients, essentially one of the main things we do is always dive subconsciously. What is it that's really driving you and motivating you? There's another aspect to clarity, which is personality, right? What personality profile do you have? I talk a lot about personality on this channel. What kind of personality profile do you have? And what kind of jobs would be a best fit for you, rather than, what kind of jobs can I do? It's what kind of jobs is the best fit for you. It's the other way around. You align the job to you. You don't align yourself to the job, because it's always tougher the other way around. And the last thing is, what is your goal at that time, right? In that life stage, at that point in time in your life, what is your goal? What do you need? So in the 20s would be hustle culture, right? Work your face off, get that work experience, build that network, and so on. In your 30s, you may want may want stability. In your 40s, you may want a legacy. You may want to be building towards a legacy. In your 50s, it's another challenge, right? Maybe it's completing something that you never really had the opportunity to do, and so on. So there's a variety of approaches at different points in time in your life that become a primary motivator for people. So getting that clarity is key. The second part, once you get that clarity, is to set a target and set a reasonable target. Because if you don't have a target, what happens is, if anything goes, then anything would be okay for you, right? And essentially, if you want to find work that is satisfying for you, you gotta be very intentional about your target and be intentional to the degree of size of the company, where you want to work, what's the culture, what's the sector, what's the nature of the thing that you're doing. Are you dealing with more of people, things, data, or ideas? These are all aspects of the target, right? What's the pay scale that you want to do? What kind of work, when I talk about work culture, what kind of work characteristics? Do you want to work from home? Do you want to travel? Do you want to balance? Do you want a lot of office time where you're just sitting and glued to the screen? Some people love that, right? Some people love to be always seeing people out there, being social, and so on, which makes, COVID a miserable time for those people. But essentially, set a target as refined as possible that's realistic. Don't expect to start from entry level, junior level job and target a C-suite job, right? That's just not realistic. So set a realistic target. That is key. And write down each of the variable that I just listed previously, and then really just hone down on, hey, what are the characteristics, and then find the job and company for that, right? Once you set a target and you have that clarity, it's like you have what you want and you have the destination. All you gotta do is close that gap from there on. So the next step after that is identify the strategy. Know what strategy you're going to take to close that gap. So there's basically 5 strategies. One strategy is, 3 switches and 5 strategies, right? A total of 5. So one of them is, like I said, the best one is adjust the job to you. If you're doing work that is not exactly satisfying you right now, change the work so that's best suited for you, right? And that's not always possible because, of limitations in terms of the company structure and so on. But changing that would help you a lot. The other option is to change yourself for a job, which would mean closing the skills gap. Either improve your hard skills or improve your soft skills so that you boost your strengths and cover your blind spots. I talk a lot about in my other video, so I'm not going to dive too much into that. The 3 switches are essentially, there's a functional switch where you stay in the same company and you switch the function. So if you used to work in HR in your company and you focus on training and development, right? And you want to get into marketing, well, you pivot into marketing, right? You stay at the same company because you are a known quantity. And so oftentimes big companies like Amazon would do that, right? Amazon has a very high bar for people to get in, but once people are inside and they know you, it actually provides a lot of latitude for you to move between different departments and move between different responsibilities. Assuming that you qualify for it, but essentially, bigger companies with a good culture allow for that. Not all companies allow for that, so that's why each strategy depends on your unique situation. The other strategy is what we call. There's a functional switch and there's an industry switch. So if you worked in marketing at Amazon, for example, and you want to do an industry switch, right? You can then apply for marketing positions at Nike, for example, because you're both doing marketing, but the nature of the marketing changes a little bit. Because one's focused on e-commerce, the other one's focused on sporting goods, right? Actually, it's more like lifestyle goods nowadays for Nike. And so an industry switch will allow you to make this kind of pivot. Finally, the last switch would be what we call a double switch. And the double switch is both a change in industry and function. And those are the most difficult because it's the biggest gap you got to jump, and you really got to sell those transferable skills, the soft skills and hard skills that you got to sell. So oftentimes when I coach my clients, one of the things I would advise is, hey, do a stepping stone switch. So what a stepping stone switch is it's a longer term for a double switch, but it's much more reasonable and much more feasible. And what you do is essentially change function and then industry, or change the industry and then change the function, right? And so based on that, the chances of you landing into a career that you're going to be happy with is much higher. And anything like when it comes to a functional industry or double switch, these switches can last 2 to 5 years, because that's just the nature of it, right? You got to close the skills gap. You got to perhaps get certification. You have to get the relevant experience. And then just the job search process may take 6 to 12 months easily. So that's why it's always important to understand that anytime you're talking about career change, it's best to have employment so that, you can still pay the bills, but at the same time move towards making that pivot, making that switch. And so that is the strategy component. The fourth and final point is to execute. And when I'm talking about execution, you can have the best strategy in the world, you're going to have the best plan, you can have a target, but at the end of the day, if you don't execute, it's all pointless, right? And so there's several keys to execution from my observation in the industry. There's several things that people usually fall into a trap with, right? Number one, they fall into a trap because they see a lot of different ideas. So they see a blog here, this is how you should write your resume. They watch a YouTube video, this is how you should structure your cover letter. They see, and then they look at stuff on interview skills, or they look at stuff on career advice, career clarity, what's the biggest booming next, hot topic market boom that's going to happen. And when they look at these things, what happens is you get lost in the confusion and so on. And let me know in the comments if you actually experience that, because that's one of the things that people, oftentimes, we are not short on information nowadays. Everything can be found online. However, what people lack is accountability systems, right? And that's where a coach comes in, or an accountability partner, a mentor, support group. These all become super helpful. And by building accountability into your career change so that you can slowly execute the plan, which like I said before, no one's going to make a career change in 3 months. You need typically 6 months to 2 years in order to make that change. And so the accountability is key. And there's a major difference. A lot of people confuse like a coach versus a mentor versus a counselor and so on. There's a major difference between that. A coach is someone who is a bouncing board, who can offer you structure, who can challenge you on assumptions, and you have these conversations on how to fulfill your goals, right? The coach is about the present and the future. A counselor, on the other hand, is someone like, a psychologist or a shrink or a psychiatrist. They offer, number one, they can give you medicine to deal with certain emotional issues. And sometimes when you're doing a career change, that's not exactly what you need, right? Sometimes you do need it, but most often you don't need that. And also, counseling often focuses on the present related to the past. How does the past influence the present, right? Your past pains and hurts and experiences, your assumptions, your mindset. How is that affecting the present? Coaching is about the present going into the future. And then the final bit, I would say so I explained what a coach is, I explained what a counselor is, or a psychologist. Now, what is a mentor? A mentor is very different. A mentor is someone who is in the industry that you want, that is approximately 4 to 5 years down the road from you, and you could turn to them for advice, and they'll be able to offer advice on how to navigate your current situation. What's the problem right now? How can you deal with it, and so on. So it's very industry specific. It's very specific to the context that you're in at the moment. And that's the major difference between a coach, counselor, and a mentor, right? And so be sure to get the right one for your accountability system. Some people need to deal with the past in order to handle the present. Some people don't have too much problems in the past, and they just want to advance to the present and the future. And so get the right accountability and support system for you. And that's usually the key for execution. We are never short on information. In fact, a lot of anything that you can find can be like anything that you need to do, you can generally find it online. Other than like stuff like personality testing, psychometrics, that's very specific to a career testing and so on. And yeah, in those cases, you do need an expert to do that for you, because they need to be licensed to use these tools. But otherwise, most things that you need, such as resume advice, interview advice, negotiation tactics, all that's available online. And at the end of the day, I would say that execution is key, and everything before that, clarity, target, the strategy, none of that's useful until you actually get the execution done. All right, and that's basically the main points that I have to share today. I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have. So if you got any questions, just leave it in the chat box, and I'll be glad to answer. Right. Sorry, every time I talk, my nose gets kind of itchy, so I keep like scratching my nose. That's just the way it is. It's pretty dusty. So any questions? Ahmed, I mean, this is like, yeah, I've seen you many times already, so be glad to answer anything you got. And yeah, like I said, holidays is usually a time that a lot of people need to sit, take pause, think about their life, and so on. And that's why, and oftentimes it's got to do with personal life and so on, but sometimes it's got to do with your career, and that's just tough sometimes, especially at the end of the year. You see family and friends. It's a little easier this year, because this year you're not seeing any family or friends and so on. A lot of us are in social isolation, and it is what it is, right? So any questions? All right, if there's no questions today, I'm just gonna end things early, because yeah, it's Christmas break anyways. So, all right, thanks for dropping by. Glad to have you guys here, and stop by and take a listen. And let's see. Yeah, I'm still going to do the live next week on December 30th, and hope to see you there. Okay, take care.